So your friend actually, like,
Yeah, undercover. I sold to undercover 2 times through my buddy.
Right.
And, but at the end of the day, I done that to myself. It's nothing to do with him.
right?
I mean, that's what brought me down.
Yeah.
But either way, when you're in that kind of lifestyle, you're going to go down either way.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting, thought-provoking episode of the Jaded Mechanic podcast. My name's Jeff, and I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and insight into the toils and triumphs of a career in automotive repair. After more than 20 years of skin knuckles and tool debt, I want to share my perspectives and hear other people's thoughts about our industry. So pour yourself a strong coffee or grab a cold Canadian beer and get ready for some great conversation.
Yeah. But
So your friend actually, like,
yeah, undercover. I sold to undercover 2 times through my buddy.
Right.
And
wow.
but at the end of the day, I done that to myself. It's nothing to do with him.
Right.
I mean, that's what brought me down.
Yeah.
But either way, when you're in that kind of lifestyle, you're going to go down either way.
Yeah.
So
George, just give for the people who listen, kind of introduce yourself.
I'm George Wilkins. I'm quality control at L&M Performance Lucas Underwood.
with our brother Lucas Underwood.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is the first time I met you. It was yesterday.
Yeah, we talked quite a bit.
We have, and we had an awesome dinner last night, and we just started talking about some of the things you're really not supposed to talk about, right? When you meet a stranger, you shouldn't immediately start to talk about religion but I mean, you and I have talked all morning now. It's fascinating to me to come and connect. And for you, the question you asked me is, what's the question? Am I a man of faith?
Yeah.
Right.
And
I said to you, I don't really know, because I don't. You know what I mean? Do I have faith that there's something going on? 100%. Right. The story you just told me a minute ago, and we'll discuss that. But I can't. My faith doesn't necessarily fit in a little box, right? Of I'm this religion or that religion, or it doesn't really align with anything. So many people that I know, I fish a lot, right? So there's so many mornings I've been out when the sun comes up, and I'm out there and it's just me, and I'm just fishing, and I'm all the problems that are in my life that week are gone, right? And so Larry Fleet, a country singer, has a song called "Where I Find God," right? And in one of the lines is like, on a Johnson outboard on a boat, right? I relate to that so much because I joke and I talk with my friend Paul Danner all the time. That's my church. Sunday morning when it's the sun's coming up and I'm already fishing, like just the most simple thing in the world, just trying to catch little bass.
Yeah.
That's where I reconnect. Everything just goes away, just eases away. So can I put myself in a little box and I say that I'm this or I'm that? No, because I'm not reading scripture when I'm out there. I'm not thinking about a particular hymn in my head, or I'm not waiting to hear a sermon. I'm just trying to catch little green fish. But that is where I recenter, I recharge every week, right? When I can get a chance to get out there.
Right.
So am I a man of faith? I think there's been too many miracles that I've witnessed in nature on the bow of a boat fishing at 4 a.m. as the sun's coming up, to think that it's just all the way it was. There's obviously something has steered this to me. And then when I think of like why I'm here right now, right? We talk about people that come in and out of your lives, and how one person, our brother Lucas, right, shapes so many people's lives. And so how did he shape yours? Like, give us your kind of how you first met Lucas, how that friendship started.
Well, the friendship started like 2000. Was a friend of one of his cousins, and he was just a little 16-year-old brat, kind of. Had a little diesel truck, and we was always car people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I worked for his dad, you know, met a little apartment in a little cottage at Mr. Hill there.
Yeah.
And, you know, they invited me in, of course. And, you know, I was a carpenter. So, you know, he was building log cabins. And, so yeah, that's how I met Lucas. He was definitely a hell raiser driving. He loved he loved to drive fast and, you know, loved that diesel smoke. And, you know, we was friends for a while, and I stayed there, I think about 10 months. And, you know, then I moved on with life. And, I want to say, I think 2016 or 17, we'd moved to Wilmington. Me and the girls decided we wanted to go live at the beach for a while. We wanted to give it a try. We moved to Wilmington, and near Wrightsville Beach, and we was there like 5 or 6 months. And
Right.
I was a carpenter, and they stole all the tools out of our back of her truck, and she was a server, so they ransacked her car and stole all the change, you know.
Right.
And I come home one day, and Lisa, my wife, she had a U-Haul in the yard, and I was like, "What's going on here?" You know. She said, "We're leaving." I was like, "What?" She said, "We're leaving." I was like, "Okay," and so and it wasn't big enough, so what we had, so we left a lot of things there, and we packed it up, and so I came back to Boone, North Carolina. We was homeless, and I knew Lucas's dad had the cabins where the new shop is. All that parking lot was, I think, 8 or 10 cabins there, little modular cabins.
Yeah.
And so I asked, could we rent one, you know, for a little bit? And of course, they wouldn't let me pay the rent. You know, they're really awesome people.
Yeah.
And we stayed there, I think, at least a week or two. And you know, so you know, kind of talked to Lucas, you know, and I had went to Diesel Tech. After prison, you know, I got my GED in prison. I was telling you that earlier, and went to college, Wilkes Community College, the diesel program. I didn't finish. I didn't get like the associate's degree because I lacked in math and English. But I got my certification in diesel and learned a lot. Yeah, and the experience, you know, was different too. I was a carpenter, but so in Lucas, when I got out of college and he seen that I was, you know, doing that, he always said, "Hey man, you can come wrench for me," just like he's told you. "Hey man, you come turn wrenches." You know, he's always said that since then. And you know, I decided to give it a try, and you know, made it 3 years, and so that's re-sparked the friendship. You know,
and we talked earlier about Lucas is pretty humble about it. Lucas doesn't talk about it, but Lucas is one of the few owners that you, like you said, you've seen him covered in grease and oil right in there up to his elbows in a 6-liter tearing it down. And I'm not trying to say that lots of owners aren't, but Lucas has a fantastic skill set. He's a very sharp, knowledgeable guy, right?
Right.
And he doesn't even go around, you know, bragging on himself. Or that's what I was always inspired about me, is because, like, dude's super smart, like really smart. And yet he's not braggadocious about it at all.
Right.
He's just like, he'll help anybody. And we talked because he gets that from his family, right? Like you talk about his mom and you talk about his father. You've known them both a long time, right?
Right.
And been through a lot of things with them. And I mean, the family is just it's on a different level. You know, it's refreshing when I come down here and I spend time with him. And I mean, him and I talk every day, same as probably you guys do. But when I'm around him, it's you feel it. You feel that energy, that positivity that he puts off. You said that's his father is like that too, right? Yeah. And so you were working with him. You came back and started working with him. Right?
Yeah. So I worked there 3 years at the old shop. When we was there, you had to do a little bit of everything. You had to you know, write estimates, invoices, talk to the customers. You know, if we could give them a ride, we would. You know, had to do the parts, find your parts, hopefully the right parts, and you know, mechanic on the vehicles. You had to do it. The next guy to do it, Lucas had to do it. Everybody done it. You know, the shop was, you know, pretty cluttery. You know, we helped motivate each other in different ways. You know, he motivated me, and you know, as a friend. As a mechanic, I was into getting the place decluttered, so I motivated him, and we started taking little steps, you know, getting rid of some junk or moving some junk here and there, you know, making it doable. And you know, so we kept pushing, and Yeah, I've seen Lucas, like I said, just as greasy as I was, me being under 6.0 all day. He could have good clothes on. He would crawl right under there, and he will still. I noticed him the other day at the shop. I see him under the hood. I still thought that was cool because he's a busy guy. He's doing life. Where he needs to be.
Yeah.
But I see him under a hood the other couple times. helping one of the guys.
Like when I came up here for the 4th of July and I hung out for 3 days or whatever. I was amazed how he knows everything that's going on in the shop.
Yep.
At the same time, plus with everything he's trying to do with editing my podcast and getting this out in a going back and forth with Mike or David or anyone else all the time, he's still knowing the status on everybody's customer's car, where it is, what's the parts, this and that and the other thing, right? It's when the video that circulated where he escorted the young lady out of the building, right? I mean, but the thing is like, I mean, we all laugh about that. And,
right.
He took a lot of ribbing on it, and thank goodness he takes it in good humor. But there's a lot of shops that if that happened, the owner wouldn't even be in the building. You know
right.
what I mean?
Right.
Like they'd be off somewhere else and they might be saying, well, you handled it wrong or you handled it right or whatever. He's there. You know
right.
what I mean? Like and that whole situation, we can all joke about it now. But you don't know how people are going to act, right?
Right. Like
you've met some individuals in your life that you don't know, right? We can't go around assuming anything about anybody anymore. What they might be going through, how is making them feel the way they feel, act the way. That girl was not in a good place.
Right.
She was not in good sorts. That's why the car wasn't released to her. So.
Knowing Lucas, he would still help that girl in any way he could in life.
Yeah.
If she ever came to him and said, hey, I need some help with my car or even, mental stability.
Yeah.
He'd help her in any way, know.
He's an amazing dude. So you're at Lucas's now working. What do you do there?
I'm quality control. I've been there about 5 weeks back on the team, which is a really good feeling. Mm-hmm. It's a total different atmosphere process than the old shop, it's very neat. Learn a lot of things in just the 5 weeks of seeing the new process. Can tell that, we started this AST thing together some years back and can tell that he's put in work and grabbed a lot of knowledge from a lot of people.
You first came to ASTE way back in what year? I
can't remember the exact year. It's got to be around 2017.
Right.
Me and Lucas came together. I guess he learned it through the ASOC group of meeting people, and he said, hey, we're going to go try this training. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then, we had good suppers and, we was kind of shy because we didn't know nobody, but I was new, as a technician. So definitely a lot of information coming in that, that I thought was neat, and, find the goods and bads on the new stuff, and, learning about steering and suspension and, how to detect, brake noises. And, then we went to, Kansas City Visions, and, it was cool, the tool shows, and, it started there. And, then of course, Lucas made some friends, and, David Roman, and,
he talks about that first. And again, so that's way, like, I knew Lucas back then, right? I probably have known Lucas now 10 years, it seems, from talking on Facebook and whatnot. But I mean, my Facebook thing got so big that, how people just sometimes, like, they're still in your friends list and they're still seeing them, but the algorithm is always showing you different things, right? So I can remember engaging with him way back when, but then there was this point where I didn't even know what ASOG was, right? I didn't know. It wasn't shown to me, and it was like, so when he talks about that first trip up to ASTE in, like, probably, like you said, 2017 or something, he'll correct us if we're wrong on the year. He came away from that like a changed man on how he was going to handle his business and essentially how he was going to live his life, because he was ready to, like, pull the plug here. He was said, I was just gonna go and be an employee for somebody else, right? And he could have, like we've talked about it, he could have gone back to work with his father like he had. He could have gone and got a job at a shop and been a fantastic mechanic for somebody else. But it was coming to this show that completely changed his directive. And I so resonate with that because he brought me here last year, right? And I was like, and we were sitting here last night, remember? And he was like, it took him 3 months. I beat him on him 3 months before Jeff would finally agree to come, because I felt like I wouldn't be in my element. I felt like all these people were way, way more advanced than me, right? What am I gonna offer them? Because last year I wasn't doing this podcast, right? I had recorded an episode with Changing the Industry. I actually recorded 2. But I was like, man, it's expensive. And what am I going to have to offer? But I came anyway. I trusted him, and I came down and did it, and changed my life, right? Because you meet people. Like, I didn't meet you last year. I just met you yesterday.
Ain't quit talking since.
Right? But the amount of people that I met last year that are now so supportive of what I'm doing and the conversations I'm having, I owe it all to AST. I owe it all to Lucas and David.
Right.
But I mean, if I hadn't come to AST, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. Yeah. You and I would not know one another. I wouldn't be sitting here having these conversations with so many people. So, I mean, it's God bless Lucas and AST for having that vision to say, I'm going to bring this guy down and show him this.
Right.
So, what's it like to work at his shop?
It's a super chill environment. You walk in the morning, hey Jorge, good morning, what's up guys? We meet up. There's a printout, each tech, each quality control, up to the ladies and the service writers. Yeah. Got the plan for the day. Plan from or pick up from yesterday. I come in and you asked me earlier what I do there. I do quality control. Yeah. So when the cars are done, we have a checklist. I take it on. It's got a short service or a full service. Short service, 3 mile test drive. Yep. Full service, 10 mile. I think it's shopware. I look up and I see what has been done to the car, oil change or a leak or brakes. Yep. And so when I'm driving, I can think about those areas more. Right. As I'm driving. I drive 10 miles, which is a beautiful trek because we go across the Parkway and Thunder Hill. We come around and I drive it and I bring it back to the shop. I pull it in, pop the hood, I check all the fluids, fill up the washer fluid. Yep. Anything needs to be topped off, engine oil coolant, top it off.
Torque the wheels if the wheels have been off.
Yeah, we always retorque the wheels, even if nobody's touched the wheels. It's always a retorque. Yep. Then I open the driver's side, passenger side doors. I vacuum the car. I hit the dash, do the windows. I even do the door jambs. Yeah, I do the door jambs. We just make it look really, really nice. We hang a little warranty sign up in there, and we just try to show as much love as possible to let them know we care. Yeah. And I really believe it goes above and beyond to pay a guy to just do that. Yeah, to somebody's car. Yeah, definitely don't have to do that. Definitely takes a little bit out of the pay, the income of money. But sure. Yeah, I like my fingerprints off when I'm done. Like, we try to keep it as sanitary as possible. Yeah. As I get out, I got a rag in my pocket. I hit the gear shifter, the steering wheel. Try to just make it way better than it was when it came in. Yeah, I think it's so many shops miss. I mean, because it's an important role that you're doing, right? It's quality control, and it's so making sure that when you drive it and they did brakes, that there is no brake noise. But we hear so many times that the customer comes back and they pick up the car and they're like, there was a smudge or a fingerprint or something like that, right? All my years when I worked at the dealer for so long, they always would wash the car when they were done with the car. It didn't matter what it was in for. I didn't have to wash the car, but we had people that did that. That kept so many customers coming back, even if they weren't satisfied with they didn't feel like they got the best service, but they got some service. The fact that they always picked up a clean car. Right. Outside made them just be like over the moon. Yeah. You know what I mean? You could get away. I guess what I'm trying to say is they would forgive a lot of things that maybe weren't right because they picked up a clean car. I joke around a little bit with that because I'm like, I wonder if some people bring their car in for an oil change just to get their interior cleaned up, because you don't have time to do it. All the time. Hey, I could get my oil change at Lucas or L&N, and my car's will come out pretty clean. You know what I mean? So, and it's amazing that some of the nicer cars, really nice cars, are kind of dirty. Yeah. And it's really because they just don't have time in a day to take out to do that. Yeah. So doing that, like I've just been there 5 weeks, but I just wonder, I would like to see some of the people's reactions, like first time with L&N and don't know that's going to happen.
Right.
And then, because they definitely don't talk about it or boast about it.
No.
You know, they just do it. And I just wonder what they think when they get in their car and like, you know what? Hey, floorboard's clean. You know, the trash is gone. Yeah. Hey, my dash is shining. You know what I mean? Like, I just wonder, you know, how they feel. I'm sure it's a good feeling.
Oh, I think it's like I said, because we all know how this sometimes goes. Like I was talking to Eric last night, and it's like, you know, Eric had a car that was kicking his butt. You know, an intermittent thing. It took forever to try and finally figure out what was causing the check engine light and it going to reduce power. I'm sure that customer would have had even more frustration if the fact that every time that car came in for this intermittent thing, and it was just kicking his butt. It was a complex thing. It was hard to recreate, hard to duplicate. Lucas had hours into it, driving it, trying to get it to happen. Eric had a ton of hours trying to get it to happen. They finally got it licked. That customer, if at least when they come and pick up the car, the fact that it's clean and there's no fingerprints on the gear shifter, there's no grease on the oil, on the steering wheel, all that kind of stuff. That helps when you're dealing with a customer on a difficult car.
Right.
You know, that customer, you can tell he's frustrated, I'm sure, with the fact that they're not narrowing it down, right? They're beating their head against this wall trying to get this car to act up to duplicate it. Right. But the fact that people are still continuing to take pride in that customer's car, because lots of shops, we'll talk about that. Lots of shops, if it was already like making them as frustrated as they are, I think their standard starts to slip on how they give that back to the customer. Right? It becomes more hurried, and it's like before you don't know, the customer comes and picks it up, and the seat cover and the floor mat are still in it.
Right.
That to the customer looks like, did you really do anything at all?
Right.
Whereas if you come back and you get a clean car, you know that somebody probably did something to it. Because, I mean, let's be real. They're not going to be able to lift the hood and tell that the techs necessarily did anything. But if they come and pick it up and the floor mat is still in it, the seat cover's still on it, you know, there's fingerprints around the top of the door jamb where, you know, the guy had to squeeze to get in between the hoist and the door. Just little things like that. And I think that's what Lucas is so good about, is because he pays so much attention to what customers wish this industry was better about.
Right.
And then he implicates it, right? And he implements it. And he hires people like yourself to put the processes in and do it. You know, we hear all the time about people want to make excuses. I can't afford to do this, or I can't afford to do that. He's paying you very well to do this for him.
Right.
Because he has such faith in the process, right?
Yeah. And I do want to speak on the quality control. As the clean car is very nice, but at the end of the day, the more important part of the quality control is I check it, on one of the checklists, it says check under the car for leaks. Mm-hmm. Okay. So had 2 incidents in the 5 weeks. That this is why we do this quality control, and it pays off. Well, 3, because a lot of times I torque all the lug nuts. I always find one a little loose. Yeah. You know, hands down. I always at least find one it's, you know, kind of loose or, you know, whatnot. But anyway, so I was pulling a car out. It was a Mini Cooper, I think.
Okay.
And, you know, it's hot. So the AC runs and, you know, drips water on the floor. I keep the floor clean so I can look for leaks. Yeah. Well, happened to had an oil change and the crush washer didn't seat. And I pulled it out and I got it, you know, I parked it, but when I came back in, I looked under it, the car was low and I seen a puddle, but it looked like the water, well, the oil and the water was together. Yeah. And I looked and I said, whoa, oil. You know, I knew, and I talked to Eric because I seen him working on the car. He said, pull it back in. Let's pull it back in and get on the lift right now. Cause we'd already, you know, I'd already signed off on it because I thought it was good. Mm-hmm. So we pulled it in, jacked it up. Well, actually I went to the parking lot, looked first and seen another little drip under it. And I was like, I know. So I ran right back to Eric and he said, let's get on the lift. Got on the lift, pulled it up. He seen, you know, crush washer, you know, on the oil plug didn't seat. Yeah. So, you know, that would have been terrible, you know, to send that car out. And then just the other day, I think it was a Subaru. You know, we got a lot of rust in the mountains, mm-hmm. and they done some brake work, and I pulled it out and got it over there, and then it was on the back wheel, back passenger wheel, and I could see the puddle at the time. I would have seen it on my way back in. Eric had automatically seen it. Hey George, did you know? And I was like, whoa, you know, brake fluid, you know. So he said, get it back in. Got it back in. it just happened, on the test drive that I can't remember if it was the brake line or the bleeder.
Okay.
They hadn't even opened that bleeder.
Right.
But something had went bad.
Yep.
And how bad that one could have been terrible for a customer to, lose brakes or, the fluid, and to, send a car out, after we'd done brake work, even if it wasn't on the back brakes.
Yeah.
To, have that situation. So that paid off within itself, just to.
And how do you find that the guys, because like I know some shops, and I've talked to different guys, when you get that involved in the quality control, a lot of shops, the techs sometimes look at the quality control person, like you're ratting them out. You're snitching on them, right? You don't have that in your shop though. In Lucas's shop, nobody's feeling like that.
Oh,
right?
No.
Like it's a team thing of.
Oh yeah,
you're just as important as the tech that did it, because he's got a 5 more cars to bang out today.
Yep.
Right. And he can't spend necessarily the time that every car should deserve to make sure that it's A1 before it leaves.
Yeah. And the guys will let me know, especially if they've had a little problem, or hey George, pay attention to this, or I done this, just to let go on test drive or whatnot, and or report back if you don't check this. Ain't no leaks, let me know. Just things are good. They've already checked it themselves, but then I do it again to finish it off. You know what I mean? And
I think more shops are going to start to adopt Lucas's type of way of doing it. And I know at my new shop that I'm just at, we're trying to discuss how to do that, right? How to get it to that next step, and we're short on manpower right now. And women power. I should be more politically correct. And so we're trying to think, how do we implicate that, right? So we're getting some young people that come in from our co-op program, right? And they're going to be able to try and help us get some of the oil changes done, some tires done, so that us techs, when we're done the car, can actually spend a few more minutes on it doing what you were speaking of, right? Making sure that it is perfect before it leaves. Because and it's the same thing. I don't want to. It still makes me a little uncomfortable if I end up going and driving something else that somebody else worked on, and I might come back and I might find something on it. I might. Did you hear that squeak and rattle when you first brought it in? Like, I realized it wasn't here for a squeak and rattle. It was here for a check engine light. But did you hear it? And on your inspection, did you happen to notice anything? I don't want to be doing that as I'm brand new, because I'm gonna feel like, am I being a second boss? Right. But it's not a second boss. It's just a situation of, because then I can go to them and say, oh yeah, it's documented. We made a note of it. The customer knows they need a strut. They don't want to do the strut right now. They just were concerned about why the check engine light was on. Good. Go
and
on
that's covering your butt.
Yeah.
Really, the way I see it. And we see it at the shop, like, hey, Jackals, did you hear this? Or sometimes, no, I didn't hear that. You know what I mean? Or yes, it's like you said, it's documented. And when I drive out on the test drive, if I feel brake pulsation or any kind of rattle, a lot of sway bar end links up there always rattle, and I write it down too. I make a little note, even if they have, cause customer could say, oh, my car didn't make this noise. Well, the tech, when he first got it in, it made that noise, and at the quality control, it still made that noise. So I write that down, to cover our area too,
it's, I think it's more important, and it's going to continue as prices keep going up, unfortunately, with everything the way it is, inflation and prices and parts and whatever's going to happen. I think the average turnaround time on a vehicle is going to take longer now, because you see it, right? It's taking longer sometimes to get the parts, and then there's some issues with the parts. So if we keep going back to the quality control of catching this kind of stuff, the customers are going to understand. Right. And I would rather them, like the drain plug gasket, I'd rather that gets caught before the customer ever even picks up the car. The worst case is the customer standing out front, somebody's catching it and you're trying to fix it. You told them it would be done by 4. It turns out that, oh, well, look at, we thought we had a water pump leak. We got a water pump, but now we got a clamp leak. And that doesn't make you look very professional in front of the eyes of the customer. And it makes them even more paranoid, because when they're waiting for their car and you're having to do another repair on it, they know you're rushing that repair. Right. They know you're burning through that sucker as fast as you can to try and get it. That makes them feel a little nervous. I think the right way to handle that is, like, it should already be QC'd and everybody knows that it's leaving better than it was before the customer's even on the property. Right. Because think about how we look to the customer. We don't look like professionals when we're scrambling to maybe fix something that, because the customer immediately is like, well, did I really need that water pump then? Or maybe I only needed that hose clamp.
Right.
The reality is you and I know it needed the water pump and it needed the hose clamp. But to the customer, because all of a sudden we're having to go in the second time and do a second repair.
Definitely create some doubt.
Right. And we want to avoid that. That's the whole point of quality control, is to give confidence back to the customer.
Yeah, and not bragging on, what we do, but just little things like, and it's so funny, Lucas was like this at the old shop when I first met him. Mm-hmm. He always liked to put a little cleaner on a rag and hit the wiper blades so they wouldn't squeak. Like just that kind of detail, really speaks, volumes of, but the little things like that people don't realize, but it could be a big deal, a squeaking wiper blade, like, or doesn't, get all the water off the windshield, and that's part of the process too. When I do the outside window, I hit those blades, and it just, coming back in the new process, and then it's still in that process. It's, it just kind of cracks me up a little bit.
So what Lucas has a rule or something. I want to say, is it by 3:00 in the afternoon? Is that the time frame that if it can't be QC'd by, is it 3 or 4, it doesn't leave that day?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm still getting in, learning everything with their times and all, but I've heard that.
Yeah.
And I know, like you say, for rushing and, purposes of rushing things through. I know. Actually, I need to talk to him about that. Really,
because my point with that is that he puts so much emphasis on the fact that the quality control is just as important as the repair.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can't have the quality control done to the vehicle by a certain time, and we know the customer, he calls the customer and says it's not going to be ready today. Right. We have to quality control it. Yeah. That's how I've heard him say, he's given us, we have to quality control it. It'll have to be tomorrow morning when we quality control it. And I think when we start to use that terminology, and it sounds very professional, and I think that puts the customer's mind at ease. It's like, yes, okay, they want to do QC on it. It's an interesting, because, we always talk in the industry about, well, it's just an oil change, it's just a brake job.
Right.
But this quality control of these, let's call it what it is, simple, repetitive jobs,
right,
it still deserves a level of attention to detail. Yeah. And I think that's what that QC does. I'm seeing more and more shops realize that it's like, it can do a lot to smooth that conversation and the relationship between the customer and the shop, build that trust, especially like new customers, right? We talk about that all the time. Lucas has a method to how he approaches a new customer, right? And I was there when I was there, and it's like, he seems to know everybody. They're established customers, right? But he's very good about everybody gets the same level of service, know? Whereas we see some shops and it's like, well, that's a really good customer, make sure you QC that car. Then we've seen other shops in the same shop, maybe that customer's like, we don't, he just wants it this way, get it in, get it out, get it done. Yeah. I've always struggled with that, because like, just because that customer doesn't spend as much money or hasn't spent as much money or has not been coming here as long doesn't mean that they should get less service. It should still get that process of a quality control.
Yeah. And, saying that everybody gets the same treatment. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be a 5-minute testing and that's it.
Yeah.
He still pays me to take that car and show it the same amount of love as a high-dollar Mercedes with a couple $1,000s of work.
Yeah.
Hands down. Or if it's an older car full of cigarettes or whatever, I'm gonna clean it up.
Yep.
I'm gonna clean it the best I can, the time I have, and I'm gonna clean it up what it needs to be. And so
do you think that giving the customer back the car in a much cleaner condition than when they got it, do you think that kind of helps the customer sometimes, that before they bring it in, they bring it in maybe in a cleaner position? Like
I think so. I know it makes me feel better just pulling the car in, it's dirty, and then when I park it, I wipe my fingerprints off. I'm like, man, like it's cleaned up, fixed nice. You know what I mean? Like, it just even gives me a better feeling of. We had
a Mazda in this week, that somebody's lunch pail was on the back seat of it, and whatever had been in the lunch pail had been in there a long time.
Oh, right.
And it had a smell. So as we're waiting to work on it, and I mean, we didn't have snow or rain or anything the last couple of weeks, so it sat outside with the windows down. But I think we still ended up like taking that lunch pail and like disposing of it, and then I think we probably threw an air freshener under the seat and tried to get the smell out of there. And told the customer, I don't know how they get used to that smell.
Right.
But you know, he brought it in. He's there because the thing is running poorly and check engine lights on and everything. We got through the diagnostic and got the repair done. But I'm amazed sometimes with what people bring in the kind of state that sometimes they bring a car. And I can still remember years ago, I was at the Nissan dealer, and this lady you've seen them, what they call hoarders.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
She brought her car in like that, and it was like the back seat was piled level to the headrest of the front seat. And then the passenger seat, like, you could see that she's constantly having to, like, scrape stuff off the top of pile on the passenger seat so she can see out her passenger side window. Right? And everybody is, like, feeling like that's just nasty. And I'm like, this is sad.
Right.
You know? Because she's got, I think at the time she had like 30,000 kilometers, not miles, kilometers on her car, and the brakes are completely shot. Can't understand, like, why are the brakes so bad at only 30,000 kilometers? Because there's probably 1,000 pounds of extra weight in this car.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I never saw her again. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what happened to the car because I moved on. I went to a different job. But, I mean, thankfully I haven't seen other cars like that since. But I've seen guys post for years in the Facebook groups about some of those cars when they come in. And people are like, how would you? And I look at that and I go, like, I think that needs to be cleaned out before somebody should work on it, you know? It's a funny thing, like how people can get accustomed to their vehicle, and all of a sudden somebody that's outside of the realm of that vehicle gets in it and we drive it and we're like, do they not hear that? Do they not smell that?
Right.
You know, like this is one of those cars that something could have crawled up in there and died, and they might not even notice because of the smell of his lunch from last month still in the car.
Well, don't ask me how you control that one, huh?
So what's you talked to me this morning about Lucas has got a plan for you.
Well, yeah. So, you know, like I said, I was a beginner tech, and I felt like I'd done pretty good, you know, when I was there. You know, I helped put heads on a 6.0, you know, early on. You know, really we'd done whatever we needed to do in the shop, and he trusted me, and I was definitely not confident myself, so it definitely took a lot longer because I would triple check things. I was really scared, just to be honest with you. Yeah. And you know, I come from a carpenter background, so I'm used to framing and seeing something come up walls in a day, like seeing some work happen, you know, and you know, working there made me feel like I wasn't really making him money, to be honest with you, because, you know, under 6.0 all day, and then there's times that you can fix something and pull it out and something else goes, and it's still your responsibility because that vehicle's in that shop, you was under the hood, you know. But, you know, I left Lucas's, definitely on good terms and all. Want to try some other things, and I knew when I left there I was making a mistake. Like I told you earlier, that I told him I'm making a mistake. Lucas is not just a boss, but he's a friend, motivator, family member, not just to me, anybody he comes in contact with, you know. So I knew, and that motivation was very important to me in my life at that time. It still is now, but it was helping me, you know, rise up in some areas of my life, and it felt good. But, you know, but anyway, I left, and, you know, we definitely stayed in contact, you know, this and that. And, you know, as I was telling you this year, you know, me and my wife split in March, and, you know, it's been a pretty rough year. We've been doing the Airbnb cleans, hot tubs, you know, yard maintenance, all that, always chasing money, schedule sporadic, 7 days a week, day or night, whatever needs to happen. You got to make it happen, you know? And, you know, as, was over in Blowing Rock area, I'd stop in and see, you know, and as a great friend of mine, I talk about my private life, you know, he helps, you know, he listens and he gives his perspective or a couple encouraging things, you know, and, he knew that Kamara, my 8-year-old, was getting ready to start school, and, her mama kind of moved off the mountain, and Kamara wanted to stay in the same school. So, you know, I was going to stay there and take her to school. And, he's like, George, you probably just need to get a real job, you know, get some structure, get a real job. And that hurt because I didn't want to, because I liked this free time I got, and I made okay, but, definitely wasn't run the business properly if I was run it properly, I wouldn't probably make as much for sure.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And, so, he was right, but I didn't really want to hear it. Well, I didn't want to hear it. He's going to tell you straight up, and whatever he feels is best. That's just him.
We talked about that this morning, right? He's had lots of conversations with me and said some things that I didn't want to hear.
Right.
Right. And we've heard some of the recent episodes, and me knowing the backstory of so many people, right, that I've got to know, and he has those conversations with everybody. Right. And he is a hard guy to, like, you feel like I never want to let him down. Right. That's how I always feel when I'm around him. Like, I don't want to let him down. Right. I don't want to embarrass him. And I don't even work for him. Right. But it's what he's given me, what he's seen in me, the potential.
Right.
That I don't want to ever screw that up.
Right.
And it's tough sometimes. It can be, like I said to you, it can be a weight. Sometimes you feel. Right. And this is not me ragging on him. He doesn't even realize he brings it into the room, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's such a force when he comes in. He's so upbeat and so positive, and everything he wants to do well, and he wants to see everything go smooth. You can't help but feel like that. But man, like he's had some conversations with me, and it's like, no, dude, you're wrong. And you and I talked this morning. It's tough to hear sometimes.
Right. Well, in May, he took I think 5 or 6 of us of the crew. Well, I wasn't even the crew.
Yeah.
And one of the girls that was on the apprenticeship program from the high school that stayed in connection, but doesn't work there. He took us to the beach. He took us to the beach, and we had a good time. And definitely I needed that. I hadn't been around him in a while, going through what I was going through with the family split up. We talked all the way there and back, like straight conversation. Of goods and bads in life and everything. And at good times we walked the beaches. That was the best weekend of this year for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I came over to the shop to see him, and he said, you probably should get a real job, George. Get some structure. And I kind of in my heart wanted to ask him about a job, but I didn't, and I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know where. So I didn't ask him. And after I left him, I worked for VPC Builders as a punch-out carpenter. It was a great job too. And I thought about asking them, for my old job back. Had still on good standards, them guys too. And one day I come over there just to talk a little bit about my life, or just to say hey. And then he asks how you doing, or how's the situation going. And if it's going a little bad, I'll tell him. And he said, well, why don't you come work for me? And of course, I was like, thought about it, and I was like, well, I'll think about it, and of course, how he says, why don't you come wash cars for me? That's just how he said it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll think about it, and I thought about the money, and then I don't know how many days, maybe a week, came back, and I don't remember the timeline, but then one day he just I think sends me a text, says, when you coming to work? And I said, well, I think it was that week. I said, well, I'll be there next Monday. He said, cool. And then I came by that Friday just to talk and, get a little feel on what's fixing to happen.
Yeah.
And then we hadn't even talked about pay, and I had a certain number that I thought would be, and he offered a lot more than that number. And I was like, okay, that was just a blessing in disguise itself. I was going to take it either way.
Yeah.
Because I knew, I needed a job, and I had, as a great person he was, period, if it wasn't still a whole lot of pay as I was expecting, I would have took it anyway, just to be back on a team with the great people.
Yeah.
And I've been for like 5 weeks. It's helped me mentally, just being in a structured atmosphere with chill people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been really awesome.
You're immersed in a bunch of people there that are just absolute crackerjack techs, right? They're just on the ball, sharp.
Yep.
Like when I've gotten to know Eric pretty good, and I know Eric quite good, and Terry, and everybody, and Jackals, and they're all, they don't even realize how good they are. You know what I mean? Like they are in that group. they're all awesome, but they would be a superstar in a lot of other shops.
Oh yeah.
And they're still superstars, don't get me wrong, but it's that unit that they have, right? And I think Lucas is still the motivating factor. He's the one that sets that culture down. And we talk all the time about culture in shops. You know, people are always like, I didn't quit the job because of money. I quit the job because of the culture in the business. Some of that is true. A lot of us still do chase money, and I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with that. But I can tell you from my experience right now, if I was making the same money that my previous employer was paying me at this new job, I would still be over the moon happy with how different the culture is. The fact that the culture is better and the money is better, it's just like it's the cherry on top, right? It's what makes all the difference. Culture's a thing where it comes back to, I think it's just, you have to see the quality in what you want to try and give to the customer. Lucas doesn't think about things as repairs, right? He thinks about things as, I'm giving quality back. I'm giving value back, right? And this is the thing, like, you know, yes, you're giving them, you're selling them a repaired vehicle. That's what you're doing. You're selling them a service. You're selling them a skill set that they don't have, that they need done. But he's about showing them value and just a different way of thinking, you know, and it trickles down. When I was up here and I was spending, you know, I hung out at the shop for like 3 days and just kind of sat around and watched how things were done. I'd never witnessed anything like that in my life in terms of how everybody approached the car. Eric and I, when we were talking last night, he's like, I approach every car the exact same way. When I'm doing that DVI and I'm going about it, it's the same car. It doesn't matter if it's a Mercedes. It doesn't matter if it's a Ford F-150. Everything starts off with him and his phone, taking photos, doing his proper inspection, and then going through the process. You know, I beat that word all the time, process. I'm still not as good as where Lucas is and you guys are. I came into this new job. This is the first shop I've ever worked at in my life, and we do a DVI, right? And I'm like, there's still so many things I forget to do. I forget to take a picture of the master cylinder so that there's a picture of the reservoir level. Right. I forget to take a picture of the belt. I know I checked it. It doesn't need a belt. It's not cracked and it's not split and it's not making any noise, but I forgot to take a picture of my phone because the customer wants that reassuring picture that says belt is okay. It's not, and I'm learning it through Lucas, is that the customers anymore don't just want to check in the box that says it's okay, because anybody can put a check in the box.
Correct.
Right? They want proof that the tech actually physically looked at the component that is checked off as okay.
Right. And in my eyes, as well as say that belt broke, you took that picture, it looks great. Yeah. It's going to happen though. Things can break.
Yeah. We had one 4 weeks ago. I had a car at my old job. It just got towed in. It was in one of our own fleets. I hadn't worked on it in months. They towed it in. AC just stopped working. So they didn't tow it in. That's right. They drove it in, but the complaint was the AC's not working. Well, I get to looking at it, and it's like a Hyundai something. The bell had broke. Now, that's what we call an EPDM, electronic power motor belt. They don't crack and split the way the old school belts do. So really, if you want to know if the belt's worn, you're supposed to get your special little tool and lay it into the ribs, right, and see exactly what that is. That's a pretty involved inspection versus the old way. We used to just shine a light on it and count the cracks and go, it needs a belt.
Right.
But the fact for me is like, there's so much more now that's going into a proper inspection of a vehicle. It's becoming harder and harder to do. There's more things that you have to remove just to inspect stuff.
Right.
So for these people that are pushing these DVIs and everything, let's be realistic about the time frame that we expect people to get them done in, you know, because that belt gave us no warning that it was going to break. It had never been noisy.
Right.
It's not like the AC compressor seized up and caused the belt to break. I literally put a new belt on that car, went through, all the pulleys were good, the tensioners were good. I went through that whole car and found nothing wrong. It was just the original belt. It was 6 years old. It had like 150,000 miles on it. And it was past probably the point of interval of where maybe it should have been replaced.
Right.
But we never replaced it. Because, again, for where I worked, if it wasn't broken, don't fix it.
Well, at the same time, I feel like it helps cover the shop and the tech, because, hey, you got a picture. The belt looks great, but it broke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a freak thing.
Yeah.
And also, you know, in the industry, got a lot of reputation of rip-off guys.
Yes.
Just hands down, you know? And, you know, it's kind of a proven fact. Hey, it was a great belt. It's a freak accident or what have you, you know? And maybe it helps that person not doubt the industry and the shop as bad as it would without the picture. Yeah. And the proof, you know.
Yeah. Because what I love about this is it's all documented. So now if the customer has a failure, we can go back and go see 3 months ago, we took a picture and this belt was dried and rotted and cracked, and we recommend it and you declined it at that point.
Right.
Now you're here with a towed in and the belt's gone and you're upset, but we followed our process. You declined the repair. We didn't hate on you for declining it. Nobody lectured them and said, hey, you really should get that. We let the customer, it's still ultimately at the end of the day is their car.
Right.
They're in charge, right? Yeah. They get to make the choice what they want to spend their money on. I'm good with it. But I think about how many times the DVI, if would have been implicating it in my processes years ago for different employers, how many discounted repairs and bad feelings we could have avoided.
Right.
Because we had proper documentation that showed, yeah, it was starting to crack. It's one thing to say belt is getting cracked, should be replaced. It's another when we have a photo and you can see, oh my goodness, that's pretty worn out, pretty cracked, and the customer still declines it.
Right.
Right. Because you can say, well, you guys tell me every time that same customer, you know, suspicion of us. Well, you tell us all the time it's cracking. It wasn't making any noise. It probably wasn't that bad.
Right.
You know, the other thing we do is we do a battery test on every battery within reason. Like it's, you know, some of them now they're putting them underneath the front seat. They're back in the trunk. So I was asking, you know, how do you guys do it? And he's like, if I can't get to it within the time frame, I write down could not check because of,
right,
you know, labor required to just get at it to physically check. But I mean, if they're right there, we check them all. And we take a screenshot of that, the machine saying it's good, and we give it back to the customer. Right. Because right now, like we're coming up in Canada, we're going to get them cold. We're already getting those cold nights. And that battery that tested good in August and started the car, come November, halfway through, that first cold morning, it is not going to start the car.
Dead.
So it covers our liability again, because we can say, see how the machine said it was marginal and you chose to keep. Unfortunately, This is why you had to get it towed in.
Yeah, so. And you know, in the DVI situation, we live in a college town, kind of retirement college town, so nobody's really local.
Yeah.
So always on Facebook, you know, need looking for a shop, looking for somebody to, you know, fix my car, or somebody that's not pricey, or somebody that's not going to try to sell me a bunch of stuff that I don't need.
Yeah.
You know, end of the day, the way I see it, as I've been in the field of, you know, L&N and learning, one, it's, you know, the DVI and all that is, you know, for your safety. It's to let you know what's wrong with your car. That is your investment, to protect your investment or keep it up. You know, we live in the mountains. Suspension and, you know, brakes is a big deal. You know, the rust on brake line, like all that's a big deal, you know. And so, you know, I get it. The guy in the past, mechanics rip off guys are trying to sell you stuff you don't know about, you know, and, you know, the DVI is picture proof, you know, and, you know, and they prioritize it on the DVI from, you know, need something now all the way down to the green is, you know, can be fixed later or, you know, addressed later.
That's what we do. Green is good. Yellow can wait 3 to 6 months depending, or so many thousand kilometers, right? And red should be done right now.
But, you know, just people's mindset of it because of the past. And now, you know, those guys out there that do, you know, rip people off and the, you know, the untrust in the situations, you know, it's, you know.
And we're never going to eliminate that completely.
Right,
George,
of course.
Right? It's just the nature of the people and the customer and their relationship with their vehicle. Everybody's heard me for years talk about, it's very few anymore that you get a customer and they love their car, right? Now you see it with the enthusiasts, right? They might have an old car, but even some people with like a nice Mercedes or whatever, they still hate putting money in a car.
Right.
So I'm not so in La fantasy land that I'm going to start to create these relationships with people where they love their car. Right. But what we can do is make it a lot more professional so that they feel more confident about having to repair it, having to service it, right? It's begrudgingly. I mean, a car is one of them things that's just constantly costing you money. Mm-hmm. You put you said your fuel bill alone every week is over $100, right? To travel around. People hate that as it is. When all of a sudden you go in and you say, hey, that you didn't even know you needed brakes because they're not making noise yet, but they're at like, 230 seconds. It's time to get some brake pads on there. The customer's like, are you really sure? That DVI being able to show them, this is your car, right? We've all seen the old times, and I've seen it, where somebody says, they come out with a set of brake pads and they put them in front of the service advisor. Service advisor says the customer needs brake pads. Customer goes, okay, I better get them brake pads. We all know there's been shops in the past. Those pads weren't even from that car.
Right.
And the customers have got wised up to that and said, how do I even know that's on my car? Right? When you've got a picture and you can see it's the side of their car.
Right.
And then, or a video, and you scroll in and there's their brakes. That's their brake rotor all chewed up in a mess. What can they argue with you at that point? Right. Nothing shady going on. So,
and on that subject, the other day I kind of got tickled. It's been a while I've been around. Eric was taking shocks off of a Chevrolet 1500, replacing them, and there was one on the floor. I'm the baby beside him. I grabbed it up and took it to the scrap pile.
Right.
And I forgot at the shop.
Yeah.
We got a bin up front that the customer parts go in, old parts,
right, to
show them what they look like, the failures.
Yeah.
Lucas or anybody in there will educate them why or what's failed on that part, and then I seen, the two struts and the two shocks on his cart. He went and dug that shock out. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, Eric. I forgot about, that, but he went and got that, shock and put it back in his cart to take it up front, when it was time. So, that's a little bit more reinsurance, trying to build a little trust back, trying to, rebuild the industry back from the bad,
And some customers don't care, right? When they've got that level of trust like they have with Lucas, they don't need to see the old parts.
Right. But they're there though.
But they're there. And it's like, and we still are using it as a learning tool, still using it as a learning aid to say, hey, see how this is starting to leak oil out of it? That's why we changed it. We're not just doing it. I have a famous line I say all the time to the customer. It's like, I'm not just doing this for practice. Right? I got all the practice I need.
Right.
I'm doing it because it legit needs to be done. I don't like putting a lot of belts on a lot of cars. I hate doing belts. It's hard, some of them, to get at. The times suck on some of them. Your hands are getting cut up trying to get my big mitts in there. But it has to be done. Right? It's one of those things that if that sucker breaks, that customer's either... The worst is just going to wind up on the side of the road and they need a tow.
Right. If
it breaks and they're going down the road and they don't even realize that engine could be gone.
Oh, yeah. It's over.
So, I mean, I say all the time, I'm not doing this for practice. I'm doing it because your car legit needs it. Now, you don't have to do it with me if you don't want to. Right? That's up to the people out front to be able to sell the job. But I still have to do my diligence in letting them know everything that the car needs to be done. It's like you've heard Lucas and David talk about that 300% rule, right? I still, to this day, and I couldn't recite it, but it's you do a thorough inspection on 100% of the cars. You do a thorough detailed estimate on 100% of the cars, and then you sell or do 100% of all the repairs that it needs, right? Something along that line. So many places don't even still grasp what they're trying to say. The customer comes in and says, I have this complaint. That's it. That's all I want addressed. And that's all they do. Well, I've never been that way. I'll drive the car and it's like, okay, so they're here for a sway bar link that's noisy, but the brakes are making noise. The check engine light's on. When I go down the road and I turn my air conditioning on, it's not blowing cold. It's under power going up a hill. I'm writing all of that stuff down, and I used to just write notes on the work order, and nobody probably did anything with it. But now, with the DVI, it forces us, even if the customer is only there to just get that sway bar link noise, we still do the DVI, we still do the thorough inspection and let them know all the other stuff, because just like you said, to cover our butt, so that they can't say, well, you put a strut in and now this thing's low in power.
Right.
It was low in power before. It's documented. You just chose not to do anything about it, which is cool. I like the reassurance of having it because it makes me feel then like my boss is willing to look out for me, right? Because then it's like if a lot of us, if you've been in the shop, the customer says, well, was it doing it before or not? It's hard to remember, man. Like by the time you ask me a week later I can barely remember what I worked on last week. Right. There's so many cars, right? Was it doing it before? I don't remember, right? Like, so now my process is to test drive every car. You know, if the customer's there for an oil change, I leave my parking lot. I go up the road about a mile and I come back.
Right.
Just because I want to drive it and see, does it have a wheel bearing noise? Are the tires choppy? Like, am I hearing the tires? Because the tires look a little sketchy, but looks can be one thing. And then, but when I drive it, I'm like, no, there's definitely a tire noise there.
Right.
Then I can bring it back and say, hey, because that same customer might come back next month and somebody else borrowed their car. We had a situation, Dad borrowed the car, drove it, and then comes back and says to his daughter, you got a noisy wheel bearing. She comes in and gets a wheel bearing checked out. She doesn't have a bad wheel bearing. She just has choppy tires, right? But she was willing to go and change my wheel bearing out. You didn't need wheel bearing. Your tires are chopped. All of a sudden, we tell her that your tires are chopped. That's your noise. She rests assured because we're coming up on winter. She's going to put her snow tires on here in another month, and those tires are going to go in the garbage.
Right.
But she was ready and willing to go and get a wheel bearing installed on this Honda, which wasn't going to be a cheap repair because somebody told her, that sounds like a wheel bearing. Meanwhile, we've been telling her this is the last year that you're going to be able to run those tires because they're getting low in tread and starting to chop. That is doing what we're supposed to be doing for the customer, is making them aware that just because somebody else says it sounds like this and they put the bug in your ear, doesn't mean that I should immediately bring that car in, sell a wheel bearing, plus sell tires. We know that happens all the time, right? The customer still leaves with a fixed car. Shop made some really good money. But I just want to tell them what's going on with the car. I don't, even to the point now where I used to get really stressed out. And again, when you're working flat rate and you're working on an incentivized or commission plan, you want to see that every repair get done. Right. Because that's your money, right? Now, I just do my thorough inspection. I give it to the customer. I'm being the advocate for the customer, as Lucas taught me to do. And if they don't fix it, it's okay.
Right.
Right? I'm on to the next one. You know, when he first started talking about being the advocate for the customer, when I was where I was in my career, I was like, and I'm still not the advocate for the customer that he is. Because I'm still, like, a lot of the time when we were sitting here talking last night, I'm not the most sympathetic person to a lot of customers, right? I look at it as like they so begrudgingly hate to do any repairs. They have such a stereotype a lot of the time about what we are and what we do that I don't necessarily always feel sorry for them. Right. But at the end of the day, I understand now when I'm advocating for them, I'm trying to keep them safe and reliable. And, you know, I'm not in charge. They're in charge. But when I do my due diligence, my process, however it happens, it's going to happen the right way, because I have people in my shop that are all on the same team. We're all on the same wavelength. I've worked in so many shops where there's different levels of care, right? You know, so my give a damn is busted, right? Some people came to work every day and their give a damn was busted.
Right.
They did not give a crap about what they were there to make money. They were there to get cars moved through. That's how they're going to go.
Right.
It's refreshing now to be around people that it's like the number one thing is we're a team to advocate for that customer's car. So where do you want to see yourself go at L&N?
Well, going back to that, so Lucas was gone for a week in Colorado. Yeah. Okay. And one point was, you said Lucas knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, we're riding down the road, or, he's gotten back and he's asking the guys, what about this car? What about this customer? Yeah. He's been gone a week. And like you say, he still knows what's going on. Yeah. I mean, he's kept up with it. Yeah. I'm in the shop daily. Yes, I'm getting back in the groove. Mm-hmm. But I'm not even knowing this car is around, and he's wanting to update, or how did this customer handle this situation or feel about things, But So I work after work right now. I still do mow yards with these Airbnbs, and I do hot tubs, So I work after work. I get off at 5, get to Youngin at 5:50. So, it's 8:30 when we get home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cutting out on family time, with me and her. But it's getting by for now. The extra money before winter or whatever, Christmas, starting to save, all that's good. And she's my little buddy. She's hands on. She gets to make her little $10 a night,
Right on.
So she's about, making a little money. And, but I'd like to eventually not work after work, like I was telling you.
Yeah.
So, I seen where Lucas had an ad for a tech, and I was like, it's kind of early on, but I was like, thinking I'd like to be, a tech again. Things are different now.
Yeah.
Like I said, in the old shop, you had to do a lot of different jobs, and we made it happen. But now you can focus on just being a tech. And, I was thinking, well, maybe I can give myself another try. So I thought about all week how I was going to talk to Lucas about it, and he gets in and, he's, checking up on the shop and everybody. And I'm like, hey man, I need to talk to you about a couple things. He said, all right, let's go talk about it. And, I was trying to talk. He's like, why are you so nervous?
Yeah.
You know how he is. Why are you so nervous? I said, I don't know, so I was like, I'd like to be a tech, in the future, He said, or can I, or how do you feel? He said, okay, well, let's do it, and, then, on the way here, on the ride here, 3-hour ride, he's like, so let's talk about how we're going to do this. We're going to do it slowly, and, how we're going to ease our way in. And he said, you start working with the fleet cars and the loaner cars, service them, take complete care of them.
Yeah.
And then I talked about tools. Tools is a big expense in this industry.
Yeah.
And I was working on, I got me a little bit the 3 years I worked there, but yourself personally what it cost in life to get those tools. And he's like, well, I don't want you to go out and start buying a bunch of expensive tools. I don't think it's a need for them. You can wrench out my box until, slow, small steps. He said, you definitely wrench out my box anytime. And, Harbor Freight, for the most part, has some good tools that, the tools that don't do a lot of strenuous work that you're not going to break, use them. Yeah. Then he said, the more expensive tools, the shop's going to, provide for you. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, he's really trying to help go in all areas to help, the techs, not have to stress as much because, the tool bill is a big deal.
It's huge. It's huge. If I'd have been able to find an employer way back when, that would have been able to help me, not only just help me with being able to borrow, and don't get it wrong, I've worked with lots of people that I could borrow their tools. But if I'd have had more guidance on what to buy,
right,
that's huge, right?
Because
otherwise we buy a lot of stuff sometimes that, you see the joke and the guy walks out to the Snap-on truck and he walks back in with a pocket knife.
Right.
What are you going to do on that car with a pocket knife? Right. Not a whole lot, right? It's cool to have, but I tell the story all the time. I had a young apprentice with me, and he was on the Snap-on truck, and he was using the shop's impact gun and the shop's torque wrench, and he was doing a lot of tires. Well, he goes out to the truck one day and he walks back in. He's got a little 3/8 drive electric ratchet. It's a $500 tool. I'm like, what are you going to do with that? Oh, it's really neat. Look at how, and I'm like,
really neat.
I said, how many rims are you going to be able to take off with that? Well, none. He said, don't you think you should be maybe thinking about what you're doing every day,
right,
and getting the tools for that? And then I went and had a talk with the Snap-on dealer. And this is the other thing I think, and it's not always an unpopular thing. I went with the Snap-on dealer and I said, that's not okay. You need to be guiding them a little more about, this is what you do in the shop every day. You're going to need this tool.
They definitely know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what he ended up doing is he took the tool back from the young lad. Just took it back.
Nice.
Right? And then we got him into a torque wrench and an impact gun.
Well, maybe the Snap-on guy learns from that too as well. Maybe,
yeah. Because, their attitude is the customer's always right, whatever he wants. But I know there's also good dealers that have sat down with guys and said, you're starting out? Okay, you're going to need this.
Right.
Right. And then you go to that. And I'm not trying to say that tool trucks, that there's no place for them. That's a popular opinion that was passed around last month with another YouTube guy. And he's like, is there really a sense for a tool truck? Do we really have a need for that in the industry? He's kind of makes some good points. But what I want to see is that yes, and you're building a relationship with that young apprentice or that young tech that you want to have that, but people move around. They might go somewhere. But they need to be doing their due diligence to make sure that they're setting them up for a successful career and putting in the tools in their place in their hands so that they can do their job. Because we know that sometimes you may not work in a shop where there's a toolbox like Lucas's that everybody can work out of, and you're constantly having to borrow from everybody. That can strain the relationships that you have with your coworkers. Because some guys, and I've done it, they're like, what are we paying him for if he's not buying tools?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I liked Keith Perkins was here last night, and he was talking, and he's like, he literally says, if the guy shows up with a pair of pants on, he's ready to work for me. I'll give him a pair of boots. I'll put a t-shirt on him. All the other tools he's going to need is already in the shop. That's a massive undertaking, right? When you think about it.
Oh yeah.
I wish somebody had done that for me. I mean, I've had lots of guys that I was able to work out of their toolbox. I was able to borrow certain things, but it was just expected that like you're going to spend $100 a week at least on tools for the next 10 years of your life as you try to build your tool setup. So, I mean, you're very lucky to have Lucas.
Oh yeah.
We talk about that all morning. We've been talking about him. And, I love how he just says, well, let's do it, man. Like he says that all the time. And he's like, why are you so nervous? He's asked me that 100 times in the last 3 months if he's asked me at all, because he doesn't realize what his words, the weight they carry. Right. It's his attitude is, well, let's just do it. There isn't an obstacle that he doesn't see a way around or a way over or a way through. He just sees the obstacle as I'm going through it. Right. I'm going over it. It's not going to be an obstacle. It's just going to be a challenge, and I'll go on to the next one. He doesn't realize that some of us are not as confident as he is.
Right.
And he's such a motivating force. We're blessed to have him. So.
Yeah. When I first, worked for him, I screwed some things up, I crashed a couple cars, and man, I come from a carpenter world, and, Pop's pretty strict. I work for my dad most of the time, and you mess up, you're going to pay for it. You're going to catch hell, and it's what it is.
Yeah.
And so, I'm beat red in the face, like, man, I got to go there and tell Luke I just put this dent. I mean, I gashed a car on the corner of a guy's flatbed one time, and or I've tore a few things up under the hood, and I mean, I'm tore up, I'm like, going there, and I'm like, Lucas, I got to tell you something. He's like, what is it? And I was like, man, I screwed this shit up, man. Might be $1,000 or something before, and he laughs at me. Mm-hmm. He says, it's just a car. Fix the damn thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. It's hard to accept that from where I come from, but he really meant it. Like, it's just a car. Fix the damn thing. Move on. It's going to happen, and like, that really speaks volumes of, a screw up and understanding it. And like, a lot of people take that to heart, get a cuss in, then you go back to work, you're feeling terrible. I mean, you might be mad because they're mad, but more you're feeling terrible, guilty. Yep. Then, then you're feeling as less liking your job or even doing the good job when you're working on the car. You know what I mean? Like it
kills your confidence like that. I don't think so many owners don't get it. When you kill the confidence, when you beat that person down over that mistake, and I'm not saying, listen, that there shouldn't be a process and there shouldn't be a reprimand, and because that's the only way we fix it is we go, okay, how did it happen and the why?
Right.
How do we avoid that happening in the future? But when you just absolutely, or the worst is when they say, okay, you're going to pay for that.
Right.
Now, every time you walk out there, how many days it may take to pay it off, how many weeks, paychecks, whatever, however you want to work it down. It's always in the back of your mind that I used to make this and now I'm making that because I'm paying for that mistake. Right. So you already crushed the confidence because like we're all still, no matter how big and tough and what we do for a living, there's a lot of us that we lack confidence sometimes, and we're trying to tackle something that's complex, or we're trying to, a job's kicking our butt because it's rusted and seized and somebody didn't make a good enough note of that when we're doing the estimate. So it's fighting us. Some cars just fight you. When your confidence is already that, and then it's like, now you're going out there and you're actually paying for the mistake.
Right.
Do you really think that employee's giving you 100% anymore?
Right.
No.
And of course, I've tried to offer to pay even some. I couldn't afford to pay some of the screw ups I'd done.
Yeah.
But I tried so hard, and he's like, no, laughing at me. Yeah. I'm serious, trying to be all serious, and and he's not that guy. He's like, and it's just, I guess it spoke volumes to me as where I come from, my background, and I mean, he had all right to be mad, and I mean, he could have accepted some money. I would have tried to pay what I could have paid, but he just wasn't going to do it.
No, it's I damaged the door once, and they pretty much said to me, like, if you don't pay for that, you ain't going to be working here.
Right.
And I thought about what that was going to cost me, and I needed the job, and I paid for it. But I wasn't given a choice. It was like, you don't have to pay for it. You can just lose your job.
Right. So
what do I do?
Right.
I paid for it. In hindsight, it was a dead end job anyway, but I needed that job then.
Right.
It didn't make me feel very good, but I was the same as you. I had done a stupid mistake. I was hurrying to try and get it out, and didn't have the door in the right position. Back the car out, scrape the door. It killed me, because all the profit that I was going to generate that week, for my paycheck was going to be a big chunk of it was going to go back to fixing a mistake.
Yeah.
And dude, was I really mad about the fact that they were charging me? No, I wasn't. I was more still mad about the scenarios, the situation that came into place as to why I had to rush in the first place.
Right. Correct.
That's what made me more mad. Right. Because I should have still not made the mistake. But what sometimes when you're in an environment where it's go, get it done. Fuck, what's wrong? Why? Hurry up. Why is it blah, blah, blah? Meanwhile, it could have been like you could have stood at the parts counter for 10 minutes because they couldn't find you the part. You're not getting paid for that time.
Right.
You could have spent 10 minutes looking for the special tool that you're going to need to get the job done. You ain't getting paid for that time. Right. And all of a sudden, and then so when you're trying to rush to get that thing done because I promised it for 9 o'clock and it's 9:45 and you're not done it yet, that's how mistakes happen.
Yeah.
So the people that are listening that are all on the ball about let's charge these techs for their screw ups, if you're ever going to charge me again for a screw up, you better be 100% perfect.
Right.
In your processes before I'm ever going to give you a nickel back of my money.
Right.
And I haven't seen too many shops that are 100% perfect with their processes. So if you think I'm going to pay you, don't count on it, bud.
Right.
Because to me, it's just not fair, right? There's things that we can do to make everything go smoother. I'm only in control of the car, and I know it's a big portion of it is being in control of the repair. But if I'm always having to fight the time, and the time is how you pay me, I'm going to rush.
Right.
So what long-term goal for George? What is it?
Long-term goals. Well, like I said, I definitely want to get, work-wise, I want to get back into, making better money, not work after work. As a carpenter and, loving nice houses, I'd love to own a house, still rent. And, I'd love to have I live in the mountains and I'd love to have an acre or two just back in the woods. That's, I live in town, a mountain city, and it's great, but, and from the beginning of our conversation, you said you love the fish. So I already know why we magnetically drew to each other, because I love the fish.
Yep.
I just haven't in a few years where the business consumed all our time. And I believe, and I'm stepping back, but, he's talking about that's your piece and kind of your church and all that. I relate to that. As the last 2 or 3 years, I like to hunt too.
Yeah.
And I've not been in the woods. I've not been out there in the lake watching that steam rise, in the water and the little brim popping, making the popping noise on the water, you know, just those little details, man. Like I've been doing that since I was 5 years old. My dad, every summer we went fishing. Every winter we went hunting. He took me till I was a teenager. I was too cool to hang out with dad. So that was until I've been stripped of that. Life stripped me from that the last 2 or 3 years. I see how more important what it done for me, as inside my heart and my mind, and I believe that's I'm getting back to that now, because that was my piece, and but long-term goals, I just want to, be as best as I can. I turned 45 the other day, and I want to live my best years out. I've wasted some time, I've wasted a lot of time, and I definitely have a good job, a good friend, a good motivator. I've met you, the connection with you last day or two. I met Eric Bach a couple years back at AST. He's from New York. We had conversations just like you did. I haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
But just meeting new people at these events, like conversation at the table at dinner last night.
You met Paul Danner last night.
I did. And I always heard of him. So back when I started with Lucas, the training videos that I tried that he wanted us to do was through Paul Danner.
Yeah.
He definitely has a great way of teaching and getting his points across.
Mm-hmm.
And I was back to me talking to Lucas about the tech job and being nervous. So I thought about the conversation while he was gone. Part of it was saying to prove to him that I wanted to come back and be, a tech. Is I've always struggled with electrical. Yeah. I've never grasped it very, very well. Okay. That's a big deal in the industry. You have to, if you don't know that, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
Even testing light bulbs just to know if the light bulb's bad or the wire hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, in my mind, as I made this conversation up in my head to approach him with while I was nervous, I was like, so I told myself I would get in Scanner Danner program. I'd get myself in there, and I would go through the electrical again, and I would take either Scanner Danner's test, or if Lucas wanted to give me a test to prove the drive that I want to get back into it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, good. And then he's like, wait a minute, because he knew a couple other classes and going to find the ones that are best and ones that are coming, up soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we talked about it. And of course, he told me to, maybe talk to Paul while I was here, see what's best to get back on board. Yeah. But they didn't know each other back then. He didn't know, he didn't know Paul or nothing. It was just he learned his techniques and his teachings and knew it was, even Lucas learned through him.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
It was so cool last year because like Lucas and I both talked to Paul for years, but we both got a chance finally to meet him last year together at the same time, and to see where the relationship now that is between Lucas and Paul, because Paul talks about, I recognize the name, but it wasn't like we were talking every day.
Right.
Him and Paul now talk as probably as often as Lucas and I talk. Right. And Paul has such a newfound, he always had a ton of passion for this industry.
Right.
But now he is so, when him and I were talking last night and he was in here in the room, and we didn't have any mics turned on, we're just sitting around talking. He has such a renewed vision of how he wants to change this industry that it's just like Lucas, it's infectious. And that's why I'm here for these 3 days.
Right.
Is I'm trying to bring people that I connect with, that Lucas is connected with, that Paul is connected with, that haven't necessarily connected with each other.
Right.
But if through me, I get them to connect, dude.
Yeah. And I when you came in, I was hearing your conversation. You was wanting to have a conversation, with him here.
Yeah.
And I heard, he's like, man, I don't want to talk about Scanner Danner.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to talk about this industry.
Yeah.
And how we're going to make it better. Like I heard you say that. Like that's what I want to talk about. You know. And I knew that. And I follow him. So when he gets on there lately and he's talking about.
Yeah. He's been such a proponent of my podcast and what I'm doing. I can never repay him. I can never repay him for what he did for me as a technician.
Right.
Before I ever had a podcast. But now the way he is putting me out there for the people to see, to hear the conversations that we're trying to have, there's nobody like Paul Danner. There's nobody like Paul Danner. And the only one close to Paul Danner is Lucas Underwood.
And it all boils down to these conventions.
Yeah.
To, these trainings to network and get together and meet.
Everybody needs to come to AST.
Yeah. Lucas has been always, since this started, we started that. He's tried to get the guys around our town. There's a lot of small shops, and he's tried to get them to come, or, if you can't afford it, he's going to help you, or somebody around here at ASOG or somebody's going to help. That's just how they do right now. And, they kind of think it's funny or goofy or, or like you say, some of them, you feel like too big of a deal for you. Like
Yeah.
you said, your personal experience for you, like, I can't go there. I can't, that's not for me. You know what I mean?
can't hang with those guys,
You
is
know,
what I think.
like I said, I was a beginner tech, and I'm, learning. I mean, even if I'm in a skilled class still,
Yeah.
There's bits of information you can catch on to and take home with you. And they're always got a book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's always a book to, take home, to have, to fall back on. I had them in my toolbox. I was new, and
I do.
I would, I had a couple of packets. I took some electrical classes, and they had it broke down, and I'd keep them in there because I was a beginner and still, not good at it. And I would, it had detailed with the, multi-tool and all, of how to test things.
Yeah.
And
It's these events are where we make the real change happen, and it's not through, like, you'll take a class and you'll come away with a little bit of nugget of a knowledge, but it's the people you're meeting, like you and I this morning. Like, before I got off the plane, I didn't know who you were. Right.
And now, same here. I heard of Jaded Mechanic, but I didn't even know it was a branch with, I didn't know nothing about it. I just heard about it, and I heard Paul talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was it. Like I said, I've not listened to a lot of the podcasts because I didn't even know I was going to get back in the trade. Like, I was kind of, to be honest with you, I didn't want to come back in because of the tool expense. Yeah. Just to be honest with you.
No.
My oldest daughter, she'll be 23 soon. Her husband, he's a mechanic and works on big trucks and all. And he's changing jobs and he's getting rid of the tool bill. And you're like, he's telling me what he spends on tools, and I didn't want to get him.
Yeah.
And it all happened, and I'm definitely glad to be here. But I hadn't listened to I listened to some of the podcasts because not all of it was about mechanics with David and Lucas. And, some of it's, proof of information that ain't about, the mechanic part of life,
Yeah.
So, but
and that's the kind of conversation that I want to have. I'm not about trying to teach somebody how to fix a car better.
Right.
I can do it. I can mentor people, but I want to know what drives you to be where you are.
Right.
That's way more fascinating. It's like Lucas, seek first to understand.
Yep.
I want to understand everybody, like you and I were talking. I want to be able to get inside that person and lay them all out there. That's how my brain works. I got to see all of that. What was your backstory? How did you, because that's how I start to understand the way they are right now is all a reflection of how we've been up to that point. Right.
Yep.
It's I'm a big believer in condition. People are conditioned to act a certain way, right? We have to work hard, like you said, to overcome sometimes the way we feel, how we want to act, because of the condition that we put through. We have to put faith in something to not act that way.
Right.
If I can understand people's backstories, I can understand better how to help them, how to enable them, how to just do like Lucas does, show them their best way, how to get to where they need to go. It's I'm a lucky guy. I really am lucky for Lucas to see the potential in me and to give me this vessel, and that's what I'm about. And I want to thank you for sitting down with me, man. Yeah. This has been cool as hell.
Yeah. Look forward to many more.
We will for sure. But anything you want to say before we go?
I don't. Just this is the first time doing this as well. Yeah. Like I said, we've talked for an hour or two since last night, and
we'll talk again. I want to keep. I talk to Lucas a lot, and I'll be definitely checking in on how you're doing.
And I'll definitely be listening to the Jaded.
I love it, man. Thank you very much.
All right.
We'll talk to you again. Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASA group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10 millimeter, and we'll see you all again next time.